So those are the three categories of the Middle East and Afghanistan and Pakistan. Very basic and overview, but I think we need to learn to live and work with each other and continue the conversation. And in conclusion, if I could offer just 3 bits of advice or 3 core messages that you take away from what I say here, and I really look forward to the conversation. There's one message, I think, to all of us who are analysts or speak in the media or cover it as journalists about the U.S.-Turkish relationship. Let's all try to avoid the overly simplistic, hackneyed paradigms about how we talk about Turkey when we're in the U.S. or how Turks talk about the United States. Because the world has changed. It's 2011, and in my view, I think these notions, which I heard last summer and fall here in the United States, that Turkey's turning its back on the West and turning east, and it's becoming a member of the Axis, and I heard this in other parts of the Middle East too. It's becoming part of this axis of Iran and others. Let's discard these notions, because I actually think east-west, north-south actually are paradigms that don't really compute in today's world. And going back to something Mustafa said too, we have a multiplicity of interests, and we need to continue to work it. It's for those reasons, though, in those old paradigms, we have things like holding up the nomination of a U.S. ambassador is a strong record for decades in the Foreign Service, and does a great job, I think, and has done a great job and communicates very well. But those sorts of things hamper U.S. ability to shape the calculations and continue this conversation. So let's avoid these basic paradigms, which I think are all, and try to create new ones of thinking about dynamism and working together and rethinking the way that we think about power in the global arena. Second message, and this is mostly for my friends in Turkey, partners and think tanks and people in the government in particular too. I think many Americans, and I'm a supporter of President Obama, many friends who work for him closely, travel with him. I think they feel like, yes, we tried this model partnership. Yes, we stuck our neck out. President Obama went to the country early on and said a lot of great things. And I mean, this is, as an aside, one of my constructive critiques of my friends in the Obama administration is that we do a lot of speeches, but oftentimes the policy implementation or mechanisms for follow-up are a little unclear. But that aside, I think there was a concerted, and still a concerted effort, to deal with this distrust at the popular level, using presidential power and speeches to do this. We can't do it alone, and we actually need Turkish leaders, people in the Turkish government, to actually help us with this challenge. Because if you believe sort of the basic premise of my talk, that we need each other, we're in this together, we need to communicate to these new generations and others the value proposition of our alliance. And it's not just about NATO, though that's important, but it's about a range of factors that have shaped our own economies and politics. We have a lot to gain from each other. And I think when I talk to some of my former colleagues who are trying to deal with some of these issues, I think there's a quiet sense of frustration, though they wouldn't say this on the record, with, wouldn't it be nice to hear more speeches from Prime Minister Erdogan or others to the Turkish population that express appreciation not only for the U.S. role and its military support, but all of the other things that we're doing and could do together. And the last thing I'd say, and to the Americans, and some of this is directed at myself too, let's actually try to develop this notion of smart power that Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, Robert Gates, who's leaving this week, I think, next week, have talked about in a general sense. And I think it's not that dissimilar when you dig down deeper and you look at what I think some people in their best heart of hearts in the Obama administration honestly would really like to do when they're trying to implement that which President Obama said when he was a candidate, and said we got to not only just end the war in Iraq, we got to change the mindset that got us into the war in Iraq about security. And I think there's this struggle inside the administration. Some people who really want to do things like not only increase the budget for USAID and the State Department and get it to function more, but really rethink how it is that we use power. And not only as a government too, but applying the smart power model to Turkey, a country where, it's not, I think smart power simplistically is viewed as just development assistance, and there's no amount of development assistance that Turkey needs or that we can provide to enhance this relationship. What we need to do is start thinking about not only what the State Department can do differently to enhance dialogue, but the force of private sector, university, non-governmental organizations, including those like the Middle East Institute, to enhance this conversation, continue the conversation, come up with stronger notions of what we can do together to help our political, security, and economic situations. Till now, I think the notion of smart power in the United States is horribly incomplete. And in in my most cynical moments, I call it not so smart power. When you look at how we're spending money in Afghanistan and other places. But I think Turkey is actually a place where we can move beyond sort of this militarized notion and also this notion of dependency and using our development assistance, but to really enhance a dynamic dialogue and put us more on equal footing because, and this is my conclusion, I'll come back to it, we're in the 21st century. We've got a new style of diplomacy and geopolitics. There's a new generation coming to power in both countries. It's already there in some instances. And we need each other more than we need sort of these petty debates about whether Turkey's moving east and all of that. Look forward to the conversation, and thanks for listening.
Thank you. Good morning. Nice to see many friends here. If I seem a little frantic, I just found out 10 hours ago I'm going to Iran in 10 hours. So I actually am frantic. But I'd like to talk just a bit today about kind of covering the U.S.-Turkey relationship over the last couple of years. I, like Brian, am not a Turkish expert, but coming in with the Obama administration, it's been amazing just how dominant Turkey has been in every big foreign policy one covers, whether it's Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Iran, the Arab-Israeli conflict. Turkey has been such a big part of what the administration is trying to do, and so I, like many reporters, have really had to sort of brush up on what Turkey was doing. I mean, I've been struck on the Syria front over the last couple of weeks, because you talk to the White House, and President Obama, I think, has talked twice to President Erdogan over the past couple of weeks about what to do, and you can see from the State Department, they're very much crafting U.S. policy based on what Turkey does. I think the U.S. doesn't have many cards to play in Turkey, and the belief is that anything really tough on Turkey, on Syria, is probably going to get blocked in the Security Council by either the Chinese or the Russians. So there really you see a steady shuffling of U.S. diplomats going to Ankara and Istanbul to see how far Erdogan is going to go. Is he going to press for the removal of Assad's brother? Is he going to press for major changes in the political system of Syria? And the U.S. is very much gauging what they're doing based upon what Turkey does. So in that sense, it's been, I've learned a lot just from the last couple of weeks. Going back though, I'd have to say, looking at three issues particularly, you do feel a lot of strains and a lot of tensions on what the Obama administration has been trying to do. Iran probably has been the most the high-profile one. When the Turks basically vetoed or tried to block the Security Council's sanctions last year, there was a lot of bitterness in the administration, and the Turkish side was saying, well, Obama, he sent us a letter, and we were basically acting on what the president had said. But I think there was definitely a feeling inside the administration is that the deal that was originally put out by the Turks and signed by the Iranians it didn't get anywhere. It was basically the Iranians didn't give up anything, and they basically received anything. And I think there was a lot of, I don't know if the word betrayal was there, but there's definitely a lot of tension. And moving forward, even into this year, I think, as a journalist, I was kind of confused why the Turkish side wanted so much to get involved on the Iranian issue, because the South Africans had tried, the Brits had tried, and the French had tried, and it had all stalled out. And Foreign Minister Davutoglu did succeed in getting around the negotiations in January. And I remember going to Istanbul, and the two sides took their positions, and just nothing happened.